Hey, what's going on, Kid Zone leaders? This training video is designed to get you enough information to get started in the Kid Zone ministry and just begin to serve in some capacity. It's not meant to replace a full training that we do a couple times a year for some of our small group leaders, but it's enough to just get you involved. So just going to do a lot of quick overview stuff. Very excited to have you joining our team. It's going to be great having you as an addition to the Kid Zone team. Love having some new people involved. I appreciate you so much for committing to get involved with Kid Zone. So let me start with our vision of Kid Zone. Our vision is why we do what we do. And our vision statement is that we want to equip every child to live a powerful, faith-filled life of following Jesus. So everything that we do needs to point to that statement. Everything that we do needs to help to equip kids to live that powerful, faith-filled life of following Jesus. So every time we're on stage and doing a skit, every time that we are leading a small group lesson, every time that we are leading a worship song or leading a game, it all needs to connect to help kids live that powerful, faith-filled life of following Jesus. Everything that we do has to point right back to that. So to keep that in mind, that's one of the most important things that we can remember because it's about not just about what we're doing on a daily basis, it's about why we're doing it, and it all has to point back to Jesus. In Kid Zone, we have four main values. Our values are basically who we are as a ministry. Our children's ministry, we want these four things to really reflect who we are. The first one is we want to be high impact. The high impact means able to affect or influence something in a powerful way. We want to have a high impact on all the kids that are involved with Kid Zone. And we want to affect them or influence them in a very powerful way, specifically pointing them to Jesus. We want everything that we do to be about making an impact and having kids experience Jesus. So again, one of our highest values is to be high impact and point kids back to the person of Jesus so that they can experience him. The second thing is, a second value is we want to be high touch. High touch is related to a business characterized by a very close relationship with its customers. Basically, we want to be focused on the people that we're trying to minister to. There are several different audiences that we really want to hit. By being high touch, we want to be strongly connected to the kids that we're ministering to and also the parents of those kids. We want to go out of our way to create a really good customer service, customer experience for all the kids and families that we're reaching. The third thing is high performance. High performance can be defined as a group of people with specific roles and complementary talents and skills who are committed to a common purpose, who consistently show high levels of collaboration and innovation that produce superior results. We basically want to do everything with excellence. Everything that we do in the children's ministry needs to be done in a high quality way so that we can keep kids engaged. The truth is, all kids are used to a very high quality experience when they're watching media, watching TV, going to movies, playing video games. They're used to the best of the best. That's what engages their attention. In order to engage their attention in Kid Zone, we also have to give that really good quality, high performance experience to them. So everything that we do has to be done with precision and with excellence. The fourth thing is high tech. We as an organization, we need to be high tech. High tech is defined as an industry seeking to communicate with the most advanced and modern equipment that is at the cutting edge. Now, I'll be honest, we don't have all of the most advanced equipment in Kid Zone, but we do want to be striving to get there. We want to use the newest technology. We want to use the newest electronics and computer check-in system and videos and things like that, because that's what it takes to engage kids. If we're not able to reach kids or engage with kids on the level that they're used to, we won't be able to keep them involved in our ministry. So real quick review of those. We want to be high impact, really directing people to the person of Jesus, making a lifelong impact on their lives. We want to be high touch, creating a good customer experience for them. And we also want to be high performance, giving excellence to everything that we do, and high tech, trying to do our best to be close to the cutting edge and giving high quality technology support in everything that we do. Now, there's also four main priorities that we have in ministry. And we should really evaluate ourselves every time that we are serving in ministry by these four things. These are the things from in priority order, the top thing being number one, safety. Safety is the most important thing that we can possibly do in Kids Zone. If we can't provide safety, we will never be able to keep kids engaged in our ministry. I've seen this happen with families before and with other churches. If you neglect safety, you never are able to keep families there if parents don't trust you. Valuing safety is a way to establish trust with the families that we're ministering to, and it always has to be the first priority. So nothing is more important than creating a safe environment for our kids. The second thing is courtesy. We want to create that high quality customer experience. We want to focus on people before tasks. We always want to think about the people before we think about all the things that we have to check off of our list. And the only thing that's more important than courtesy is safety. So remember, these are in priority order. So we have safety and then courtesy, and we want to do everything that we can to create a good, welcoming experience for the kids that we're serving and their families. The third priority is show. We want to have a high quality presentation. Another way to say show is our presentation. What we're putting in front of kids needs to be a high priority. We can't put that on the back burner or make that something that is secondary. We have to give that really quality experience and performance or show to the kids, or else we will never have their attention. Again, I mentioned this before. We need to reach kids in the environment where they are. We need to reach them by having high quality technology, videos, performances, acting, games, stuff that engages their attention. So everything that we do from a presentation perspective needs to be a high priority for us. Then the fourth priority, this is important, but understand that it is last on the list, is efficiency. Efficiency is making things work fast and making them work well. There's a reason this is last, because efficiency is all about tasks. The other things are all about people. Our highest priority is people. So safety, courtesy, and show is all about engaging people, keeping them safe, and then efficiency always comes last. We want to be efficient. We want to get things done well. We want to get things done fast. But it is last on our priority list. So those are some things to keep in mind. It kind of gives you a picture of who we are, our vision, and also our priorities in ministry. And let me just talk a little bit about where our culture is today. Our culture is very much divided. Many people do not prioritize going to church anymore. If you look back 10, 20 years, people came to church every Sunday. They came every week. But now, as I'm talking to different children's pastors and people ministering to families, it's a rare occasion where they have people coming to church every single week. A lot of times we have people coming every other week or once a month. And as I talk to different children's pastors, a lot of times I hear this idea of we can't compete with the culture. We have these cultural barriers that we can't overcome. We have soccer games, we have gymnastics practice, we have piano lessons, we have split custody situations where sometimes the kids are with mom who goes to church, sometimes they're with dad who doesn't go to church. And all of these things come together and they create our culture. And many times it feels like we're creating or we're fighting against what culture is, because families don't prioritize or value church the way that they used to. I want to just talk about that in a second, but first let me tell you a story. This was probably over a decade ago. I had a child that came up to me, was very concerned. She came up to me and said, "Hey, Pastor Joe, I have some bad news. Really bad news. I don't know what to do." I'm like, "Oh, what's going on? Tell me about it." And I pulled her aside, and we started talking. And she said, "I'm not going to be able to come to church tomorrow. I can't come." And I said, "Well, what's going on? Tell me what's happening." And she went on to explain that, well, my family, they've planned this trip to a place called Orlando, Florida, and I'm going to Disney World, and I can't come to church. And she was so disappointed, almost devastated that she was going to miss a week of church. But in her mind, the most important thing for her to do every single week, every single Sunday, was come to church. And a family vacation to Disney World should not impact her ability to come to church. And it showed me, okay, we're doing something right at that moment in time. Kids love going to church more than anything else, more than the happiest place on earth, more than going to Disney World. And we have to create that same culture. We have a responsibility to make church the most fun experience that kids could go to. And with you joining our team, understand that that's our goal. That's our goal, to create an experience that kids wake up every single week and they say, Mom, Dad, it's time to go to church. I've heard of a bunch of kids, parents tell me this often. Yeah, my kids drag me out of bed every Sunday morning because we have to go to church. I want that to be the norm here. And while it might feel like we're fighting culture because there's a lot of things that are pulling kids and families in different directions other than church, I want to create a church experience that's pulling kids towards church, away from all those other things that can be pulling them away from church. I want kids to want to go to church before they go to soccer practice or to their basketball game or gymnastics or piano or family vacations. I want church to be such a fun experience for all of our kids that they don't want to miss it and that they're dragging their parents there. If we can create that experience, we can create that culture. It changes the way that we're able to minister to families. And we need people like you to help us do that, to create that experience. Right now, you probably have received one of these manuals. This is our policy manual. If you have that with you, it'd be good to flip along with us. And this is something that really goes through all of our safety protocols. We could spend a lot of time on this. I'm going to go very quickly through it, but understand our first priority is safety. So this is one of the most important documents that we can go through. It outlines a lot of our different procedures to make sure that we're keeping kids safe. And there's also certain laws and regulations that we have to follow as a church ministering to kids. So go ahead and flip through this with me. There's table of contents at the beginning, but let's first take a look at this children and youth abuse reporting policy. So this is all written here. The exact policy is defined. But basically what this is saying is we as a church are required by law to be mandatory reporters, and that we have to report any type of abuse that we come in contact with. If we understand that a child is ever being abused, we are required by law to report it. So this is going to outline a lot of the different ways of how we go through that process and what this looks like. This first page explains all the different types of abuse that you might encounter. But let me just talk about two different ways that we can see abuse, and I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. The first thing is witnessed abuse. This is very clear. This is if you see an act, a criminal act where a child is being abused. Very rarely does this happen. Honestly, in my 14 years doing children's ministry here, I've never actually witnessed a child being abused. If you see that, it's pretty simple. You call 911 and we have the authorities respond to that situation because it's right there and we want to protect the child. The majority of times it's a little bit more gray. And we have to know how to respond to this. So the second thing is an abuse concern. This is what typically happens. We don't see abuse take place in front of our eyes, but we see evidence that could be signs of abuse. So there's several things that we have to do throughout this process, but here's the most important thing. If at any point in time you see any sign of abuse, if a child says something or if you see something, talk to one of the pastoral team members and we can just make a plan of how we look into this. Every time that there's a small sign of a child having a bruise on their arm, we don't call the authorities and report abuse because it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what happened. We have several different steps of how we do that. The next few pages really go through how we handle that, how we communicate with kids, how we communicate with parents, how we communicate with staff. But the most important thing that you can know to do is if you see any signs of abuse, talk to either myself or one of the other pastors so that we can appropriately look into this and determine if it needs to be reported. This also gives you some details of how we actually report abuse, how we handle self-harm, kids that are making suicidal threats or cutting themselves. This gives you the details of what we do, but really the first step is always if you see signs of something, just bring one of the pastors into the conversation and we take it from there. Next part of the policy manual is our safety manual for all the kids. We want to really maintain the highest standards of safety and adhere to all laws and regulations that we have. That's outlined in this first policy that's written at the top of page 24. A few things that we do: we screen each volunteer. Every volunteer that's over 18 has to go through a background check process. It's actually required by the state of Pennsylvania. All of our workers are regular tenders, and things like that. Staffing and ratios. This is something to be aware of. The pastor or the coordinator of each ministry is responsible to maintain safe ratios. We don't have a specifically assigned ratio in some of our main environments, our elementary environment or our preschool environment, because it is somewhat subjective. When we are in an unsecured environment, we always have to maintain a ratio of 1 worker to every 5 kids. We also have to maintain the 2-person rule that we'll talk about in a little bit. That's basically meaning that you should never be alone with children. Preschool and nursery kids should not be taken into any unsecured environments. They should be in their lockdown area unless there's special permission given from the children's pastor. Now, access to the youth and children's ministry area. This is important. So who's allowed in the children's area? Who's not allowed in the children's area? So in the elementary age group, we want to make sure that all of our workers have a specific form of identification. That can be one of our Kids Zone shirts or our name tag. They have to wear that at all times to just designate them as an approved worker. And really the only people that should be allowed in the children's ministry area is the kids that we check in, our workers, or people that are registered as a guest. That can be visiting parents and things like that. This outlines a lot of the different details of that. When we have our children's ministry area, specifically elementary, but also in preschool, we always have a lockdown environment. So we lock all the doors to the gym. So every door, you can't get in unless you have a key or unless you go by one of our staff members. So you'll if you've never seen that, you'll soon see how that whole process works. To keep the environment locked down and to make sure that only the appropriate people are given access to that. This outlines how you can become a visitor. We're not going to go into detail with that. Drop off and pickup. Any children in the children's ministry, they have to register before they can check in. There's a quick card that they fill out, and then they can become part of our database. And they always have to be given a sticker, name tag sticker for each one of the kids. The parents get a numbered tag to pick them up. The reason that we do this whole process is to make sure that kids are picked up by the appropriate person when it's time for them to leave. You've probably seen this multiple times, that basically my kids will get a name tag and they'll have a 3-digit number on it, and then I'll have a tag that matches that number. I need that tag to pick them up. Very important that we follow that process and never allow kids to leave with somebody unless they have the tag. If you're ever in a checkout situation where you're responsible to check kids out and either the child or the parents lost their name tag, you always want to bring me or one of the other children's ministry staff members into the loop and allow us to handle that. That's never something that we ask you to handle if people lost their tags. Let's see, physical contact with minors. Looking at the bottom of page 28, there are appropriate and inappropriate ways to express your physical affection to kids. We want to make sure that we're really clear on what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. So typically what I like to say is there's several different areas that you can make contact with a child that are appropriate: face, head, shoulders, and hands. So if you're picking kids for a game, you can tap them on their head. You can always give high fives, pounds, anything like that. Hand on shoulder is always appropriate. Short side hugs are fine. Or sitting next to a child. Those are all great. Then after that, we list a lot of things that are not appropriate, areas that you should not be having contact with kids. So things like giving back rubs or tickling kids or having kids sit in your lap are not appropriate. Now, there's some exceptions specific to diaper changing. Obviously, when you're working with the youngest age group in the nursery, that's not something that we handle in elementary, but it's something to be aware of for anyone in early childhood with diapers. Now, discipline. Bottom of page 29. We set rules in every environment. We always want to communicate those rules ahead of time. And if there's ever someone that breaks the rules, there needs to be discipline for that. There's appropriate ways to do that. Easiest ways to do that are listed at the bottom of page 29. Timeouts, reward systems, withholding incentives, or warning systems. The majority of things that we do during our weekend experience is we redirect kids, and we have point systems and things like that. For any of you teenagers that are involved on the weekend experience, the main thing that I want you to do during the weekend service is redirect. All that means, if a child has inappropriate behavior, tell them to stop doing that behavior and start doing another one. You don't need to punish them. You don't need to withhold any rewards or anything like that. Just redirect them, and if it becomes a problem, they're not listening, then you can always bring your service coordinator or one of the children's staff members into the loop. On Wednesday nights, when you're in your small groups, you need to have some levels of discipline, and these are all appropriate forms of discipline that you can use. Under no circumstances should you use any of the following things listed on page 30. Harsh or demeaning words, forcing a child to say anything negative about themselves, or anything physical, embarrassing a child in front of the group, or taking away their group snack. That's not something you should do to individuals. Here are some things that I would say really warrant us contacting parents. If you have any behavioral problems with kids, there's 3 things that I've seen that become problems that really we're not able to handle, and we want to call parents at this point. And you always want to bring one of the children's ministry staff in on this decision before we start contacting parents. But the first one is defiant behavior, a child that just refuses to listen to you. So there's a difference between just disobeying and defiant behavior. If you say, please sit down, and they say no and they run away, I would consider that defiant behavior. At that point, when they're not listening to us at all, we have no ability to keep a child safe. Now, if you say sit down, they sit down. 2 minutes later, they get up and they wander away. That may be an attention thing. They can't pay attention, or they're forgetting things. That's a completely different thing. So defiant behavior. Second thing is physical aggression. Anytime that a child is putting other children in danger by being physically aggressive, we need to contact the parents at that point in time. And then also repeated disruptive behaviors after receiving multiple warnings. So the kid that just keeps breaking the rules and keeps doing his own thing. Those are the things that we may need to contact parents. Now, honestly, in my 14 years here at the church, I've probably had to bring parents in a dozen times. It doesn't happen a lot. Normally, we can get kids to just refocus by redirecting. So keep that in mind. Now, let's look at one-on-one situations. Children's workers should never be alone with a child. This is something that's very important. The reason for this is it's for accountability purposes. We never should have any child able to say, I was alone with this person and they did whatever to them, X, Y, or Z. If you're never in that situation, there's never an ability for a child to make any accusations. It's for accountability. It's for the safety of the kid. It's for the safety of you as a worker. So we have the 2-person rule. You always should be with another worker when you're with kids. You should never be alone in a room with just kids. You should always be in eyesight of another worker at all times. Then the other thing is our open door rule. You should never be... You should either have a window in the door or the door should be open. A lot of our classrooms on the second floor, they're equipped with windows, so you can close the door for noise purposes, but you never want to have the door closed if you don't have a window, and you also never want to have the door locked. Even if there's a reason you don't want other people to come in or whatever, we need to have the door open all the time, unlocked, for people to be able to come in and for people to be able to see what's going on in there. Again, that's for accountability purposes. Transportation, we never should transport minors unless you have the approval of the children's pastor. Bathrooms. No worker should ever be alone with a minor in the bathroom. If a worker needs to use the restroom, they should wait until the children are out. Here's typically what I'll do if I go in the bathroom, there's any kids, I'll just turn around and leave. If I need to use the restroom, go in, use the restroom if it's empty. And if a kid comes in while you're in the using the restroom, just get out and do your best with that. This is a little bit of a sticky situation. But do your best to never be alone in the bathroom with kids. If you go in there, there's other kids, just leave and wait until later or go to another restroom. Drugs and alcohol in the children's ministry area. This is not permitted for any reason. If you see any drugs or alcohol, we need to confiscate it and bring the pastor involved in that, and we're going to have to talk to parents immediately. So keep that in mind. This is also how we handle it if there's an adult who has any type of drugs or alcohol. Bullying, violent situations. This kind of outlines what you can do. If there's any real violent threat, we obviously want to call 911 immediately. And there's ways to bring the security team involved with things. But basically what we want to do is we want to remove kids from immediate danger and address the situation the best we can, using 911 if necessary, calling our security team, bring the pastor involved. Same thing with weapons. This outlines everything that we do with that. So read through that. Medical stuff, illness policy. Children workers should not be in the children's ministry areas if they have any of the following symptoms: fever, diarrhea, vomiting, or persistent abdominal pain, contagious illness, untreated infestation like lice, undiagnosed rash, or a runny nose with colored mucus. I always like this part. The clear mucus is okay. The colored mucus is not okay. So just be aware of that. We want to keep the kids safe. If you notice these symptoms with kids, we probably do need to contact parents. If you have these symptoms yourself, you should just call off. Make sure you let whoever is overseeing you for your service know that you won't be able to come. Allergies and snacks. Now, when kids come to Kids Zone, they should be indicating if there's any allergies that they have. So it's up to you as small group leaders to help monitor any allergies or snacks. Now, weekends, we really try to limit what we give kids. On Wednesday nights, when you have specific small groups that you're working with, you want to be aware of kids' allergies, and it'll be printed on their name tags, and you also want to confirm. But as a general rule, we avoid all nuts because it's potentially a problem. Appropriate snack foods would be graham crackers, goldfish, animal crackers, apple slices. Some other things that would be inappropriate are listed there, and we try to stay away from anything that's a choking hazard, and then also anything that is a high allergy problem, like peanuts or tree nuts or things like that. Treatment, any medical treatment. Really, if there's any child that needs medical treatment that is in your care, we want to limit our medical treatment to scratches that get Band-Aids or ice packs that just help soothe pain. If it's anything beyond that, we want to call a medical professional to help do that and get the parents involved. We should not be providing any medication for anything. If a child has a headache, you don't give them a Tylenol. We want to contact parents and let them make those decisions. But we should not be giving any type of medical treatment beyond Band-Aids or ice packs. If there's ever a major medical problem, we always want to call 911. But we do have a medical team that's here for the things that are in between calling 911 and a Band-Aid. We can always call the medical team. We always have someone here on site on weekends and Wednesdays to be able to come and just assess the situation and make sure kids are okay. So keep that in mind. Photos and privacy. Just be aware you shouldn't be taking pictures of kids and posting it all over the internet. Here's the reason for that. We have some kids that are in foster care, and they're actually not allowed to post their picture on the internet. So we want to be sensitive to that and be cautious of that. And then at the end, it outlines our evacuation procedure. Pretty simple. We want to remain calm, call the authorities, and just get out of the building as quick as possible and go to our meeting area. So what I'd like for you to do if you're getting involved is read through this entire manual. I flew through it really quickly, hit on some of the key points, and you want to sign the back. This is our lifestyle commitment, making sure that you agree with those things. Love to have you on the team. Very excited that you're going to be joining us. Kids Zone is not what it is without volunteers like you, and creating that experience where kids are valuing going to church over everything else. It can't happen without people like you. Thank you guys so much. Looking forward to having you involved.